Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. It is Tuesday, February 20th, episode 49. Today I'm going to be talking about a criminally overlooked thrash metal record from technically 1992 out of Russia. This is a record I heard quite a while ago and sort of forgot about. It was recently reissued by the mighty Nuclear War Now. So I'm going to talk about this record. I'm going to talk about Russia a little bit. I am fortunate enough to have been there in my journeys in person. It's quite an experience. I'll talk about that record. First, I want to talk about Nuclear War Now. Great record label. I've ordered a few things from there in the past, 6 months. Got a Dissection Storm of the Lights main. This recent order, I got this Aspid record that I'm going to talk about. I got the legendary Tank Filth Hounds of Hades, and this was actually pressed by High Roller Records out of Germany. But this thing is incredible. It comes with so much stuff. Came with a 10-inch with like the singles on it, a 7-inch version of the legendary Fell in Love with a Stormtrooper. If you don't know about Tank, it's crucial. New wave of British heavy metal. They're basically the protege band of Motorhead. Dude, this record, not that expensive, comes with 2 posters, giant posters. Putting one in the workout room, the one with the album cover. Comes with like a very R-rated book here with a bunch of cool pictures and like an envelope with promo photos in it. This is how it's done, people. Anything that you order from Nuclear War Now is high quality, shipped with a lot of care. This came in one day. Granted, the guy's down the road, but I mean, between me ordering it super late at night and getting it, it was literally one day. And he packages it with a lot of care, sends out a lot of cool promo items, posters and little cards and stuff. Mini flyers. This poster on the back actually has a biography of the founder of Nuclear War Now, Yosuke, who is an important figure in extreme music. I got to talk about it a little bit. I look at what's happening with all these giant corporations and tech conglomerates buying up all the record labels, including all the, I guess you would say, extreme music labels, definitely metal labels. It's a hostile takeover. That's how I look at it. It's a war, and we have people on the front line, and I've talked about a few of them. You know, I talk about 20 Buck Spin. I've talked about tank crimes on the West Coast, Profound Lore in Canada, Hell's Headbangers in Ohio, but I haven't talked that much about Yosuke and Nuclear War Now. But this guy is a force to be reckoned with, a hero of the extreme music scene. He does it all. Festivals, reissuing long lost metal masterpieces such as the Aspid record sitting behind me. And he's now in the process of opening his own record plant, Helios Press. He's trying to raise money for that. So I strongly urge you to support that guy in his endeavor to open a record pressing plant. If we're in the middle of a hostile takeover, no one's more hostile than this guy. And I feel like it's super important to keep this kind of resistance alive. You know, I know that sounds like dramatic and over the top, but it's not, man. It's happening in every corner of life. Everything cool and unique is being wiped out by faceless, unremarkable corporate bullshit. And we got guys like Yosuke and Nuclear War Now that are literally like putting up blockades against that. So check out Nuclear War Now. Buy some records. You will not be disappointed. Everything he sells is super high quality. And like I said, he cares about it a lot. And please support him in his endeavor to open a record pressing plant in Texas that is independent of any weird corporate interests or outside poser bullshit. Okay, that's my rant on nuclear war. Now, I'm going to talk about this Aspid record at the top of the show here. I usually do it at the end, but I'm kind of basing the theme of the show around some of the concepts here with Russia and the downfall of the Soviet Union and sort of the context within which this record was made. So the band is Aspid. Their name in the album title you'll see in like Cyrillic on the episode description. Is that what you call the written language, Russian language, Cyrillic? I don't know. Somebody correct me if you're listening in Russia, which you're probably not because they block everything over there. But from what I've seen, the album title is Extravasation. But this Nuclear War Now pressing says the effusion of blood, which I think means the same thing. This thing was recorded in May 1992. Took a long time for it to get released. I think I'm not totally sure it ever got like a proper release. I think it was way later that people started discovering it. Like I'm not sure if it was officially released back in the early 90s, but that's when it was recorded. It came across my radar in, I want to say 2012, maybe 2000. Yeah, it had to be sometime in 2012. The band I was playing in Phoenix, our bass player at the time lived in a house with two of the guys from Vector, not the lame ass guy, but the rhythm section, the cool guys. And our band would practice over there every once in a while. I would hang out over there quite a bit. I went over there one day and those dudes were listening to something on the TV. I think it was just YouTube going. I was like, what is this? It was really, really good thrash metal. And it was this record. And I listened to it quite a bit back then when I first discovered it and sort of forgot about it. So thank God for Yosuke for reissuing this thing and bringing it back into my life. I would say this record is for fans of Voivod, but the vocals are way heavier and better. Coroner, maybe Demolition Hammer, stuff like that. Really gnarly, technical thrash, but not too technical, not too progressive. And it has something, I think, because of the context in which it was made during the implosion of the Soviet Union and I'm sure these guys grew up like under the thumb of all of that. So there's a rage or something. There's like a repressed rage and it's got a scary edge to it that not very many thrash records have. I love this record. I think it's probably the most underrated thrash record of all time. If I hadn't been totally spaced out about it, it would have probably made my best thrash albums list that I made not too long ago. But better late than never. Strongly urge you all, if you like metal, you like extreme stuff and great riffs, obviously you're listening to a show called Big Riff Energy. So I'm assuming you're into that. Check out this record, Aspid. I guess now we're calling it Effusion of Blood. But this got me thinking about a lot of stuff that's relevant right now. The tensions between the former Soviet Union and the West and all that sort of stuff. And it just got the gears turning. So I thought it would be cool to talk about my experiences in Russia. I was fortunate. I mean, I'll be real. It's the coolest thing I've ever done, touring. I was fortunate enough to get over there in person when I was in Gatecreeper. And that tour was like rife with disaster and illness and all kinds of crazy stuff. But the beginning of it was one show in Finland and then 2 shows in Russia, and everything was cool then. I think Sean and Eric, they got their guitars lost by the airline. But other than that, like we were feeling good. And so that first half, fortunately, we were in great spirits. But we flew into Finland, stayed the night with this crazy Finnish dude named Hinka. which I guess is sort of their version of Hank. And this guy was a total wild man. I remember like laying on the floor in his living room. Well, he had a sauna. I guess like almost everybody in Finland, even if you're in an apartment, you have a sauna. I don't know if it's like a law over there, but it's very important for them. And I think I'm not a doctor or a statistician, but I'm pretty sure they have like a longer life expectancy. And there might be a correlation between more of them having access to saunas. But anyway, we did the sauna with Hinka. And I remember at the end of the night, like laying down on a sleeping bag on the floor, trying to sleep. And this dude's just blasting Demilich at full volume. And I open my eyes and there's a naked Finnish dick just like inches away from my face. And nothing weird was going on. But, well, depending on your definition of weird, but he's just like dancing around, listening to Demilich with no clothes on. And I think that's the last thing I saw before I went to sleep. So who knows what happened after I was unconscious. But we get on a bus to go to Russia. I remember watching, it was like a long bus ride. Watched The Godfather Part 1 and 2 on the bus off of like an hour of sleep or something. We got to St. Petersburg, right? I think we played St. Petersburg first. Played St. Petersburg, and man, it was just like so familiar yet so foreign. We got to the venue, and it's like, it looks like an underground death metal show in the United States, but there's just like slight differences, you know. I remember talking to Eric about walking around outside, and eventually you kind of start to feel like you're tripping. There's like a surreal effect happening because on all the buildings are these Cyrillic words, and their alphabet sort of looks like the English alphabet, but some of it doesn't at all. It'll be like backwards or inverted or like a warped, weird version of some of the characters that we use in English. So you start kind of feeling like you're in a dream or something. Like you'll get lulled into forgetting you're in such a, you know, unfamiliar place. You'll be walking around and there's like supermarkets, everything's kind of the same, and then you'll see some weird ass like acid trip version of an English word that doesn't make any sense, and your brain's trying to like figure out what the word is, but there's not really that much correlation between their alphabet and our alphabet. It seems like there is sometimes, but there's not a lot. So yeah, it was just a trip. It was a trip. Played the first show. My biggest memory from that first show in Russia, and I wish I could remember the guy's name. I think it was a pretty typical Russian name. I want to say it was like Ivan, like his name started with an I, but I could be way off base. And on the off chance that you're listening, dude, I don't know. I know they block everything in Russia, but maybe people have VPNs or something. Please write me bigriffenergy@gmail.com if you happen to be listening. This dude was a rocker, leather jacket. He sort of reminded me of the guy, if you see the Pantera home video where they're in Russia and they're talking to the guy who doesn't know a whole lot of English, Ivan or whatever your name was. He knew English, but he just looked, he had kind of had the vibe of the guy in the Pantera home video. Leather jacket, all psyched, about to go see Pantera and Metallica, which I'll get into that concert in a minute here. But I made a friend with this dude, and he was a real like old school rocker. I want to say he was at that Monsters of Rock Moscow show, one of the 1.6 million people that showed up, 1991. But we had a great conversation, man. We just talked about, the fact that there's more of us than there are of them. And by them, I think I mean power mad, sociopath, corrupt, greedy, warmongers that live to fuel the military-industrial complex, that live to strategically divide people into politically charged consumer groups. or politically charged voter base. Guys that live to exploit the people that they're ruling over. Now, I think every country has that in common. And so did my friend over there. And I remember him talking about, you know, here in Russia, we get like a lot of propaganda, a lot of like anti-West and a lot of anti-American propaganda. He said, but we have the benefit of knowing that our media is state sponsored. It's literally just the government telling us what to think. And he said, most people, I don't think, buy into it that much. Most people don't buy into it that much. And man, it just made me think of the similarities and the differences between our situations. And, you know, I told him we get bombarded and pounded with fear and panic, catastrophizing every single thing that happens. And I said, I think we're getting to the point where a lot of us don't really buy into that either. There are more people who just want to live their lives, experience Big Riff Energy, put on a leather jacket and go to a death metal show, or put on a Carhartt and go to a country show, or have a good time. We outnumber these no riff energy scumbags by 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion to 1. We have to remember that. And okay, that was St. Petersburg. I'll never forget my friend, man, having such a deep conversation about, you know, the people that are into Big Riff Energy are the people, or whatever your version of that is. We're the people that are going to carry the human race into peace and love and joy and survival. And the other guys, I'm going to leave them nameless so I don't get assassinated. Their time's coming, man. Their time's almost up, most of these guys. So the next day we went to Moscow, got on a train, went to Moscow. That was the most I've ever felt like, I hate the term, but when we played that show, that was the most I ever felt like a rock star. And not in a douchey, like stroking the ego kind of way, but the people in Moscow just reacted to heavy American music with so much gratitude and excitement, because they just don't get that many bands over there from other parts of the world. And it was just such a, the whole experience was just so joyful and ecstatic, you know, everyone involved. My biggest takeaway from Moscow, my favorite memory from then is going in the back of the venue, like in this office with the dude that was running the show. And he was sort of telling me, like, we have, I don't know if this was like full blown dark web or if they even have to go dark web with it over there. But he was like, okay, so we have Craigslist over here, but you can get anything you want. I said, what do you mean anything? He said, name something, anything. I was like, an army tank. And he gets on the computer, he's typing, he brings up a I don't even know if it was decommissioned. It might have been a functional, like, Soviet era tank with a gun, like a tank that you see in a war. There it was for sale down the road. I was like, can you get a hand grenade? Brings up a hand grenade right down the street. Like literally anything. We didn't get too creepy with it. But yeah, I think we looked up a lot of bombs and guns and stuff like that. And then at the time, I don't know if y'all remember this, but there was a batch of MDMA going around worldwide, I think, that was like, they pressed it in the shape of Donald Trump. It was like, I think it was dyed or whatever. It was ecstasy pills that looked like Donald Trump. And so I was like, can you get the Trump ecstasy on here? And he typed it in, and there it was, right down the road. You could literally get anything. I'll never forget that, man. What a trip. So yeah, I came away from that situation with a real firsthand understanding that all this division, I mean, there are concerted efforts, and we can conjecture all day long about who's doing it, but there are clearly concerted efforts to divide us. And it's happening like divide Americans against Americans. That's super obvious. It's happening to divide us Americans against other countries and other types of people. It's happening within countries. It's happening from country to country. It's happening globally. That's all bullshit. It's not real. It's not real. When you actually go places, you will see that most people are not that way. Most people don't want to have an enemy. Most people don't want to live their lives in panic and fear. So I recommend that you turn off the TV, get off of your phone, stop thinking you know anything about anything, because you probably don't. Let's be honest. Unless you're over there boots on the ground talking to people, you don't know shit about what's going on. And I want to shout out my friend in the leather jacket. I hope he's still getting hit with Big Riff Energy all day long, regardless of what's going on. This conversation, the internal one-person conversation that I've been having in prep for this episode, got me thinking about one of the coolest things that's ever happened. 1991, when the Soviet Union and the iron grip of communism was disintegrating and imploding. What's one of the first things that the Western world did? We sent our boys. We sent the real soldiers over there, man. The soldiers of the Big Riff. We sent Pantera, Metallica, and AC/DC over to Russia to hit them with that Big Riff energy. That's the trick to world peace, man. The big riffs. 1.6 million people showed up. I think my friend in the leather jacket was there. I would imagine the guys in the band Aspid, band I spoke about at the beginning of the show, I would imagine they were there. When I watch Pantera playing the breakdown to Domination in front of 1.6 million Russians, former captives of the Soviet Union, it gives me good vibes. I'll just say that. When I watch Metallica play Harvester of Sorrow to 1.6 million people who are in desperate need of Big Riff energy, it makes me wonder how many of those people, how many of the 1.6 million people that were there was at the best day of their life? How many people up to that point in their life was at the best day that they had ever had in their entire life? And a lot of them, I would imagine it might still be the best day that they ever had in their entire life. I would say it's a large percentage of those people. That's the power of Big Riff energy, man. That's what we're going to lose if we let these, if we let the hostile takeover of these corporate entities and tech bros extinguish the Big Riff energy. So we have to hold the front, man. We have to hold the front. I want to shout out Nuclear War Now again for being on the front lines, trying to keep that Big Riff energy from being neutered and extinguished, and best case scenario, completely commodified. I'm going to get to some emails. Daniel wrote me about Gene Clark, No Other. One of my favorite records ever made. Hey Nate, just wanted to thank you for recommending this album. I've been crushed by this brilliant thing ever since you mentioned it. Strength of Strings is one of the most gorgeous songs I've ever heard. I don't typically spend a lot of time in country/folk adjacent music or music with audible lyrics in general, but I'll be navigating my way out from here. Keep them coming. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it country, but I know what you mean. It is a psychedelic masterpiece. And if you try to listen to Gene Clark No Other, I think the first song is the worst song on it. I'd imagine some genius at the label or somebody said, oh, we got to open with that. It sounds the most like the Byrds. It's the most accessible. It's the weakest song on the album. If you really want to get a feel for it, start with Strength of Strings. That seems to be the song that really wrecks people, man. That guy was tapped into some kind of secret or something. The folklore with Gene is that, you know, he was at the forefront of the hippie psychedelic psychonaut stuff, and he went way out there. And if you listen to No Other, he's out there telling you secrets that you know are true, but you're not sure what they are. But I guess he sort of reined it in at some point, got sober-ish, maybe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And at some point, I believe what happened is that Tom Petty released a cover of a Gene Clark song, and Gene started getting the residuals off of that, and the money started pouring in, and he was off to the races and ended up not making it back. Kind of a Greek tragedy type of story, psychedelic Greek tragedy, but that's what the record feels like, is a psychedelic Greek tragedy. I mean, it's highly recommend it. Start with Strength of Strings, and then if you dig that, start the record over. Daniel also says, you give Cursive Conception way less credit than it deserves. I was just getting into slower tempo metal when that dropped, and that first vocal line is kind of iconic to me. Saw you play that stuff in a little bar called Kung Fu Necktie in Philly. It was one of those, hey, y'all can move up a little closer gigs. Had a blast. Yeah, I love Kung Fu Necktie, man. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's not really up to me to determine the external worth of the music I'm making. That's not my favorite thing I've ever done. That's just how I feel about it. But it's not up to me to tell you how good it is. That's up to you to tell you how good it is. So I appreciate the kind words. I know a few people that really love that opening line. That is one of the parts of the album that I would say doesn't bother me. Fenriz likes that shit, so I'm not going to argue with him. Rick from Miami. I wanted to let you know that I went to school in Oklahoma and happened to attend some of the shows you mentioned, such as Sounds of the Underground, where Martin quit Opeth and Gene Hoglan replaced him. I also went to several shows at the Conservatory, Green Room, and the Diamond Ballroom in OKC. Yeah, Rick. So if you saw some kids running from the shithole Mexicali restaurant employees, that was us. Conservatory, yeah, that's where I saw Municipal Waste the first time, on St. Patrick's Day 2006. I also saw The Sword there when they only had the one record out. That's one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. Every song from that first Sword record is good, and that's all they had, so they just played the whole thing. Diamond Ballroom, I know I saw Mastodon there. Can't remember what album they were touring on. Maybe Leviathan, maybe Crack the Sky, somewhere around there. Green Room, actually, this is kind of in relation to your question you have coming up. I played the Green Room in Tulsa before I could drive. I think I was 14 or 15. And we played the Green Room, pretty sure, in my first band. Yeah. Okay, Rick says, I have a question about touring since I know it's become a complicated issue for a lot of bands. My question is it possible or feasible to do smaller DIY tours, meaning booking your own venues, let's say 10 venues in close proximity, and control your own ticket sales, merch, you name it? Is that out of the question? In my head, it makes sense, but I have never toured nor been paid for a gig in my life, so I don't know how this whole thing works. One more thing, can you post or send me the Amazon link for the pink guitar pedal you were talking about? The pink pedal is the HM300, I think it's called. It's a Behringer. Let's see. HM300. Yep. Just Google HM300. It'll pop right up. Hot pink. It is the Japanese HM2 Boss circuit. Yeah, great question, Rick. This, I hope to God, will be the last time I talk about touring. So I can only speak to my own experience. So I'm going to sort of break down my experience with booking tours and that whole side of things. I started playing out of town, like I said, before I could even drive. So 15, 16, 17. I remember distinctly one day leaving school in the middle of a snowstorm to go to Tulsa and play a show. And my band at the time, we were covering 10,000 Years off the First Time on Fire record as a 3-piece. A lot of fun. Played with some deathcore bands and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I started playing out of town literally before I could drive. Did it as much as you can when you're in high school without, completely dropping out. Went to Arkansas, started touring again there probably a year later. And back then with the Arkansas bands, it was like you get on MySpace, you try to find bands in the areas where you're wanting to go. Maybe they talk to people at bars or promoters, or I mean, at that level, I wouldn't even say it was really like actual promoters, actual agents. It was just really super DIY. And you carve out a little circuit. We had this band I was in Arkansas. We kind of had our circuit, and it was mostly Midwest. We never really made it to either coast. Just wasn't happening for us. And dude, even to book like a piddly fucking thing with dive bars and playing people's houses and basements and stuff like that, someone is grinding and grinding and grinding. And it's not hard physical work. It's not real work, to be honest, but it's like time consuming. Somebody is on email, or at the time, MySpace, just like harassing everybody they can, trying to get a hold of people that are working in bars, that are drinking all day and all night and not looking at their messages, and not exactly the most organized people. It's a lot of time consuming effort, and you're not getting paid for the hours that you're putting in to book these things. We would go out, and half the time, I'll never forget going to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Sloshkosh, they called it at the time. And we rolled into town. There was like it's a college town, so it's like, it's okay. There was a cool record store. We ended up going to this bar where there was one girl working, and they had, on the menu, it said they had all kinds of like exotic meat burgers. So they had like ostrich and buff. I guarantee you that shit was all just cows from down the road. I guarantee it. But they were charging extra for like rhino burger, silverback gorilla burger, Komodo dragon burger. I don't know if they had that, but you get the idea. But they were doing $2 Jameson shots at the time for some reason. So we hung out with her. They had a volleyball, like sand pit in the back where they had volleyball tournaments. So we went back there, screwed around. When it was time to go to the place we were playing, it was just this dive bar. We walk up, and there's one lady working there too. And she's like, "What are you guys doing?" You're like, "Oh, we're Friday, maybe Saturday." That was the name of the band. Kind of like Mars Volta worship type stuff. Good, really good band. Fun band to play in. But she was like, "I don't know what that is." That was most people's reaction when they heard the name. That's the name of our band. We talked to so-and-so. Our main dude was like, "Yeah, we talked to so-and-so." And she goes, "Well, so-and-so no longer has anything to do with this bar. He hasn't had anything to do with this bar like in months." Oh, okay. So she's like, "You can play. I don't know. If you want to play, you can still play." So we loaded all our shit in there. We had like a fog machine and a little bit of lighting at the time, I think. Loaded everything in. She felt so bad for us. She called her husband or her boyfriend. And then there was a homeless guy who was cross-eyed on the sidewalk from North Carolina. And we were from Arkansas. So, I mean, that was as close as we were going to get to somebody from Arkansas. So this guy became our buddy. So he came in. They let him in. So there was the girl working the bar, her dude, and a homeless cross-eyed guy from North Carolina. And we played to those folks. And that was the last day of the tour. And dude, she felt so bad for us. We drank for free. She like smoked everybody out. I was in such a mindset after that was one of the few times I smoked weed on tour. One of the last times I did, honestly. This was probably like 2007 or 8. And then our drummer drove us, I don't know how far in the wrong direction, but I know at some point we saw the Capitol building This was before like Google and MapQuest and stuff like that. We saw the Capitol building, which means we had driven a significant distance in the wrong direction. I passed out at that point. And the next thing I remember seeing were the arches in St. Louis, which is quite a ways away. So that's what it was like booking DIY tours in Arkansas. I ended up in Arizona playing in a legit band and helping book shows and book tours for that band. The last tour that I booked myself was 2012. And I had a corporate job at the time. It was like a suit and tie thing. It was corporate AV in a hotel. So I would go to this hotel in a suit and tie, set up stuff for like corporate meetings and stuff like that. But my boss was like non-existent. He was drunk as hell, like all day, every day, doing whatever. And fortunately, the property that I was at, my home base, if you will, there was like never anything going on when that guy was in charge. And so I would show up to work, I would get on the computer, I would get on Facebook, I would get on email, whatever, social media, everything. And I would spend basically the entirety of my shift booking a tour. And that's what I did. And I'm on the clock, you know, I'm getting paid like a pretty good wage. I'm supposed to be setting up like PowerPoints or whatever, and I'm just booking a tour for my band. Had I not had such a fortunate situation in which to operate, I wouldn't have been able to book that tour. There's no way. It takes so much time. And so now fast forward, you know, back in 2012, when I got done booking that tour, I was like, that's the last time I'm doing that, period. And that was the last time I did it. And I'm going to hold myself to that too. I say certain things like that at certain junctures in this journey, and I've found that it's best that I hold myself to it. So I didn't really know much about booking agents and promoters and that whole infrastructure until a little bit later. What started happening is a good friend of mine, he booked a lot of bands from Europe, and he would try to get this thing set up where they could come over. My band at the time would be direct support, and they could use some of our gear. It's a great situation. It's a win-win. It benefits everybody. So at that point, it's like the other band's agent is booking the tours, and he just tells us where to show up, and we show up. And that was great. We did that a few times. Then I ended up, you know, forming Spirit Adrift and joining Gatecreeper. And that's when I really started learning about how the infrastructure works of booking agencies, booking agents, promoters, and really at the core of that whole thing is the booking agency hires booking agents, and every booking agent has a handful of bands that they book. So they use their bigger bands as leverage to get people to do their fucking job, because otherwise nobody does their fucking job. No one answers emails, no one responds, no one is like on top of anything, you know. So some of these bigger booking agencies, they might book Slayer. I'll just use that as an example. Slayer's not even a band anymore, but we're speaking in hypotheticals here. So the agent will sort of, you know, you don't do it explicitly. Like, hey, if you don't help out this smaller band that we're building, then that's going to reflect poorly on you when it comes time to like work with you with our bigger bands that make everybody a ton of money, right? It's just leverage. It's a good system. I won't lie. It's a good system. It gets people to put the appropriate amount of effort in. It gives booking agencies and bands that are growing some inroads to like actually grow the band. It's just kind of overwhelmed right now, I think. But I'll tell you where I stand with like booking DIY stuff, and I'm just going to be perfectly honest. Maybe it makes me sound like an asshole. I've reached a point in my life where I'm not going to put in the amount of effort that's going to make me not enjoy my day into anything that I don't enjoy doing. I don't enjoy harassing people via email. I don't enjoy, like, what's the line in The Sopranos? Tony's getting like fucking fed up with Joe Pantoliano. He's getting really mad at him. And he says something like, I fucking hate how much you make me ride your ass. He just kept fucking driving him crazy. And Joe Pantoliano's like beating up women, killing people he shouldn't kill, doing all kinds of shit he shouldn't do. But the thing that bothers Tony the most is that he doesn't have his shit together, and he is taking time and mental energy and mental bandwidth away from Tony's day. Tony's doing what he's supposed to do. Joey Pants is not doing what he's supposed to do, and it's driving Tony fucking crazy. And when that scene happened, I related to that so much, man. I like playing shows. I love meeting y'all. I love going to cool places and bringing the Big Riff energy and feeling the Big Riff energy. But it's almost not even enough of a payoff anymore for me to have to sit here all fucking day harassing people that I don't even want to be talking to in the first place. I know what my time is worth. I know what my effort is worth. I know exactly what an hour of my time is worth. And I would much rather, if I'm going to spend an hour of my time doing something that I don't like, it better be monetized, or there better be at least some like meaningful payoff at the end that's worth it. If I'm going to spend 12 hours of my day doing something for free, I'm going to spend it doing something that is profoundly meaningful and enjoyable, like writing a song. I'm going to spend, if I've got a day to blow not paying the bills, I'm going to write a song. I'm going to get better at guitar. I'm going to educate myself about Mike Dean's analog synthesizer setup or something. I'm going to do something that's going to better me at my craft or make my day better or something like that. In other words, like in very simple terms, if I'm not getting paid for something for 12 hours, then it's got to be something I like. I'm not going to sit here and just fucking email people that aren't good at their job or that don't even have like a modicum of consideration for other people's time and stuff like that. Yeah. In other words, I'm over it, man. Theoretically, I could sit here and set up like a regional tour. I could probably honestly book like a national tour myself, but dude, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. So this whole thing is supply and demand. When the demand's high enough, you'll see us on tour. And if the demand doesn't get high enough, you won't see us on tour. And a lot of it's timing too. A lot of these shitty bands that suck, that got no business hogging up the touring circuit, are already imploding and disintegrating and getting canceled. And you know who I'm talking about. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. Move, bitch, get out the way. And we're patient, man. Everybody in Spirit of Drift's got a ton of shit going on. I'm working on this new record. It's taking up the vast majority of my time. I'm hanging out with y'all on the weekends, amassing an army of big riffers. I really like doing that. That's something I really like doing. I've been doing it on Sundays. I'm having to open up Saturdays because the legions of big riffers, it's getting serious, dude. We're creating our own front line. You know what I'm saying? So, if you want guitar lessons or hangs or Q&A sessions or help with recording in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever you're using, bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Been having a great time with it. Eric, on the topic of Kerry King's band lineup, Kyle Sanders owns a local venue here, which I played and rehearsed behind. All the dudes were overjoyed for him. A solid moment of unity. That's what it's all about. I didn't realize Kyle Sanders, who's playing bass for the band Kerry King, is the brother of Troy Sanders from Mastodon. And And from what I understand, Kyle has worked with Mastodon teching, something like that. So that's probably the connection there. But yeah, dude, hell yeah. Good for him. Good things happening to good people. Your thoughts on storytelling were solid. A tried and true method of having a compelling life story is hard origins and upbringing. I think a lot of us in the modern age, especially my demographic of middle-aged men, live a life of quiet desperation, bound to a job, perhaps a family to support, maybe have some interesting or moving stories from the past, but life has tapered off. Any advice on breaking free from the typical routine, spicing life up with a little danger, ultimately to pin something worth writing about? How do ordinary men make great art? Well, the short answer is they don't. I can't think of, I'm going to use men as a catch-all for like mankind. So men, women, persons. How do ordinary persons make great art? They don't. All I know is my experience, man. I lived a lot of experiences, good, bad, and ugly, before I even turned 21. And I'm not going to recommend any of it. I'm not going to recommend anything, to be honest, because I can't. It's your life, man. It's your life. But I don't know. I've just said yes to most opportunities that have presented themselves, whether it was the right thing to do, dangerous thing to do, logical thing, illogical thing. Just, I tried to stay up for like whatever's going on, you know? I don't know, man. Put your phone away and just leave for a couple days. Just go out in the woods somewhere. I don't know. I don't know if you need to like introduce psychedelics into your life. I think I reached a point of diminishing returns with that at some point. So I'm not really going to recommend that. I don't feel comfortable as much as I want to say like, I don't know, pick a weekend, go to the bar and drink 15 shots of wild turkey and see what happens. You know, I don't think that that's responsible advice. Even if I'll say this, even if your life seems ordinary, pay more attention to what's going on around you. Start to ponder the question, are we in a simulation? Start to ponder the question, what's with all the talk of UAPs? They changed the acronym UFO to UAP. And now the Pentagon's acknowledging it as a actual thing. Just, I don't know, pay attention more to the crazy ass fucking world you live in. There's no such thing as being bored. I mean, the fact that we exist is such a mind bender. It's such a statistical anomaly. Yeah, everything is a trip, man. You don't have to be doing anything crazy. You don't have to be on drugs or running wild to internalize the fact that like this whole thing is a trip. So I don't know. I got to just do something fucking crazy, man. Ollie from the UK. Hi, Nate. My name is Ollie. I'm in the southwest of England, and I'm a massive procrastinator, so I hope you don't mind if I ask some questions about some things you spoke on probably weeks ago at this point. I've been thinking about how you were lamenting the death of the scene as it pertains to a local body of like-minded folks making like-minded music, and couldn't come up with enough examples to refute your notion. Whatever the hell is going on in Denver right now is an obvious example. Any other example I could think of had either drifted apart or become wholly inactive long ago. I could draw up a list of hardcore scenes, but the boneheaded insularity there is, I think, appealing to everyone within and kind of obnoxious to everyone without, though this seems largely by design and mostly posturing anyway. I'll add, not just boneheaded insularity, lack of riffs. There is a severe lack of riffs in the hardcore scene right now. I mean, there's a severe lack of riffs in the metal scene too, but I think metal's got it edged a little bit. What's the last good hardcore band with truly great riffs? Gel has some good riffs, but I would say the last hardcore band that had truly great, interesting, big riff energy, Gulch. Look what happened. They're not even a band anymore. They got so over it so fast, they just disintegrated their own band, which I like respect that so much. But dude, whoever was writing riffs for that band Gulch, those are riffs. Those are riffs. If you ain't matching that energy, I don't want to hear it. Okay. What's this guy's name? Ollie? Yeah. Ollie goes on. Hang with me here, folks. To that end, I began wondering if the advent of the internet and the ease with which people can meet and collaborate across increasingly meaningless borders has made the record label the new scene, i.e., a recognizable brand that can, to varying degrees, act as a signifier of either a specific sound or a specific spiritual or creative focus. It's definitely become the primary way I discover music, checking out homepages or band camps of labels like, oh, here we go, $20 Spin, Profound Lore, Dark Descent, Gilead Media, Tank Crimes, Van. I'll stop there. So on, so on. I just wondered if you see it the same way or have any thoughts on this from the perspective of the artist. One last question on a similar topic, since I'm hoping you've got a little inside baseball. When I discovered Pallbearer way back on their first record, this led me directly to Spirit Adrift into $20 Spin. At the time, $20 was the premier destination for bands in your style, but I've watched over the last decade or so as it's morphed from the go-to doom/stoner/trad metal destination to a nearly wholly death metal operation. My own tastes have moved in the same direction, and I've no real idea if $20 Spin influenced me or if the changing tastes of fans such as myself changed $20 Spin. Could it be that the relative accessibility of bands like yours and Pallbearers made them more likely to be snapped up by bigger, but most certainly not better labels? Or is there a genuine dearth of quality new bands with that sound forming today? Or is it just that Dave $20 Spin's personal tastes have moved the label to where he wants it to be? I'd sure love to hear some more Samoth Race. Me too. Okay, man, there's a lot there. Yeah, I see your point about labels being the new scene. That's a good way to just, if you follow a label that's got a good track record, then they're sort of, that's like a way of keeping up with newer good stuff without having to like dedicate so much of your time like searching things out. It's a conduit. There's a word I'm looking for. It's a way to get easily plugged into good new music. Yeah, I would agree with that. What was the other question? Oh yeah, all these labels are only doing death metal now. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that you got to sell records. And what's selling right now? Like new metal in disguise and unoriginal death metal. I would say $20 Spin and Profound Lore maybe have the more kind of original death metal. Dude, I'm just so burnt out on it. I'm like, Black Breath put their first stuff out in 2008? And to me, that's when that got interesting. Is that 16 years ago? So like from where I've been sitting, and you know, I can't fault anybody that getting into something late or at a different time than I did. You know, I forgot about this Aspid record for 12 years. You know, shit happens. But to me, the new death metal revival thing started happening in 2008. And I am tired. Oh my God. It's I don't know. I hear one record every 3 years that I think has anything interesting to offer. But you have to sell records. You got to sell records, and that's what people are buying right now. It almost seems to me that just by having clean vocals, there's a huge subsection of quote unquote metal fans or extreme music fans that are just not interested. So I think there's no inside baseball or anything like that. Knowing Dave, if there were great bands playing metal with clean vocals, he would be putting their stuff out. So again, it's a supply and demand thing, man. The demand is for, I'll just say death metal. As much as I want to insert my opinion, the demand is for quote unquote death metal. Or new metal in disguise. A lot of it. And yeah, I have so many thoughts swirling in my head about things that have happened, whether it's record labels forming or bands forming or whatever, that have really negatively altered the course of the thing I love so much. But hey, like I said earlier, some of these bands are already imploding and they're being put on blast for the fucking pieces of shit that they are. And if you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. I also got to blame like the musicians themselves. There's something happening right now with extreme music where the people just aren't extreme. The people aren't savages. The people aren't crazy enough. The people don't have the demon of creativity enough. I don't think there's enough people that are willing to like put it on the line to try to do clean vocals. I was talking last episode about Chapel of Disease and how even though maybe I didn't think those clean vocals were like fully realized yet, I want to encourage more people to do that, because who's doing it? Who's doing it that's any good? And then the bands, like, people will recommend me like, oh, check out this new wave of traditional heavy metal type band. The music will play and the music's cool, and then the person starts singing. I'm like, you're a fucking pussy, dude. Like, you didn't put enough time in on this. You're not trying hard enough. Go harder. Do better. You know, who do we have, man, that can fucking really sing? Crip Sermon, Eternal Champion, Sumerlands. I don't know. So you can't just blame the trends or the labels for trying to make money, because at the end of the day, they have to make money to stay open so they can keep putting out music that it's at least like halfway relevant, halfway good, halfway meaningful. You kind of got to blame the people making the music. And you know, I think all the crazy folks and the real ones, a lot of them are in country music right now. Even if it's music I don't really like that much, like that dude Jelly Roll. I've heard a couple songs. Not really my thing. But that's a real ass dude. Eric asked earlier, you know, how do ordinary men make extraordinary art? They don't, man. And I don't know if I would call Jelly Roll's music extraordinary, but it's certainly resonating with a lot of people. He is an extraordinary person. Lainey Wilson is an extraordinary person. Billy Strings, dude. I just watched an interview with Billy Strings. It was one of the best interviews I've ever seen. This guy, Billy, and I saw another interview where he's wearing a Cryptopsy None So Vile shirt. Tyler Childers, Savage, Sturgill Simpson. Like, these are extraordinary people that have been through some shit, and they got something to say, and they have a lot of pent-up emotion and life experience to get out. And I feel a severe lack of that in extreme music now. I don't believe any of you motherfuckers, all you scary wannabe fools with face paint and shit on. I don't believe you. You know about evil? Okay. You know about suffering? Okay. Living in the fucking Swiss Alps talking about suffering. You live in a country where everybody has a sauna in their apartment, and you're telling me about hard times and suffering and darkness. Shut the fuck up, man. Dude, I'm gonna talk about Billy Strings a little bit on this subject. Extraordinary people. I watched this interview with him. This dude keeps popping up, and I'll see he plays bluegrass, right? But he'll play like a heavier set, I think, too. And he covers like some pretty obscure stuff. He'll cover like Alice in Chains, Led Zeppelin bangers. I watched him do a bluegrass version of Fearless by Pink Floyd that like brought me to tears. Amazing. And if you don't know anything about this dude, both parents were junkies, grew up surrounded by bad, hard shit, and they all got through it. I believe both of his parents are sober now. But that's an extraordinary person. That's a person that sat there on methamphetamine playing guitar for 48 hours straight. You think he was just born able to play guitar like that? No. Maybe he has some genetic disposition towards it, but he sat there for 48 hours one day on methamphetamine playing guitar. He sat there on DMT and saw the entire secrets of the universe being revealed to him. You know, where are these people in extreme music? It has the word extreme in it. I see a lot of ordinary, boring, scared motherfuckers, man. So yeah, hopefully that the tide shifts on that. I'm waiting around for the next 10 years to see if the Master of Puppets Stranger Things scene has any sort of like ripple effect. And I'm not saying you should smoke meth and play guitar for 48 hours, but do something, man. Do something. So that, you know, you can make something that's has some kind of actual meaning behind it. Because otherwise, who cares? Like, there's so many death metal bands doing the exact same thing right now. It's like, who even cares? You got me back off on my rant, man. But I will say, the stuff I'm working on, part of the thing I'm trying to do is affect like a serious tide change. And I wouldn't say that it's something that's never been done before, but I'm trying to affect a tide change and bring a little bit of diversity to just a sea of like same old vacuum cleaner noises. So if you want something that's a little more interesting than a vacuum cleaner noise, check out the record from Russia, Aspid, where I guess we're calling it Effusion of Blood now, or Extravasation or something. But it rips, man. It's really, really, really good. You know what? It reminds me a little bit of the Sovereign record that came out in January, which is still my favorite album of the year. So if you like Coroner, Demolition Hammer, Violence, good era Voivod. I got most Voivod's good. Check out Aspid. Support nuclear war now, man. Support all the labels that we've mentioned. And let's fight back against this tyrannical Disneyfication of something that's supposed to be extreme and weird and dangerous. All right. Woo. See you next week, coming up on a year.